versus Pittsburgh in the divisional round. He never played in the NFL again. Buffalo Bills and Derek. Derek might have thrown an almost unfathomable 4 touchdowns to 22 interceptions in 3 seasons with the Bills. But at least they didn't waste a high draft pick on him. In Derek's defense, maybe he was too distracted by teammate O.J. Simpson's incredible class and respect for women to focus on becoming yeah, let's go with that. Carolina Panthers, Jimmy Clausen. Clausen was once seen as the next superstar.
Clausen was never really that bad.
After a good but underwhelming career at Notre Dame, he got to start a lot of games as a rookie in Carolina. He was so terrible that he led the team to the first overall pick, which they used to draft his replacement in Cam Newton. Clausen would later go on to suck major ass with Chicago and Baltimore too. Very versatile. Chicago Bears, Gary Huff. Rest assured, the Chicago Bears have had so many terrible quarterbacks over the years, it's hard to single out just one, but I went with Huff, who threw 12 touchdowns and 34 interceptions in 4 years with the team. It's made even worse by the fact that Huff was a relatively high draft pick, 33rd overall. Huff would leave Chicago and spend 2 years with the expansion Buccaneers, where he would throw 4 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. Pretty rough. Cincinnati Bengals, Achilles Smith. The absolute worst possible scenario for an NFL franchise.
One of the biggest draft busts of all time.
Spent a lot of money on in free agency or
Achilles Smith.
Smith falls into the latter category, as he was the 3rd overall pick in 1999. He proceeded to play 4 years in Cincy, putting up just
one of the
5
biggest
touchdowns
busts
and
of all
13
time.
interceptions. He never once looked like he belonged on an NFL field. Truly an awful player in every way. Cleveland Browns, Mike Phipps. You might be shocked to not see Tim Couch, Brady Quinn, Johnny Manziel, or Brandon Weeden here, but none of them were as bad as this guy was for as long. Phipps was an objectively terrible quarterback by every measure, yet thanks to his draft status, 3rd overall pick, he lasted 7 seasons in Cleveland, starting in 4 of them, in which he combined to throw 35 touchdowns, 72 interceptions, and a 51.3 passer rating. Overall, he lasted 12 years in the NFL and finished with 55 touchdowns and 108 interceptions. Yeah, gross. I know. Dallas Cowboys, Chad Hutchinson. Hutchinson was extremely versatile. He was terrible at pro baseball, so he decided to play pro football, and he was terrible there as well. He played just 2 years in Dallas and was in a QB competition the entire time with slightly less shitty interceptions and a 2-7 record. How about them Cowboys, am I right? Denver Broncos, George Herring. I'm willing to bet, unless you're a Broncos fan over 70, you've never heard of George Herring before. There are 2 main reasons for this. The first is that he played just 2 years in the early 1960s for the expansion Broncos. The second, and more prominent reason, is that he was absolutely atrocious. He finished his 2-year NFL career throwing 5 touchdowns to 23 interceptions and a 29.3 rating.
Oh my God.
Detroit Lions, Mike
Yeah,
McMahon.
he was bad.
Yes, Mike McMahon. I remember this guy.
Mike McMahon.
June 2005 season where he replaced an injured Donovan McNabb and started 7 extremely painful games. It turns out he was doing that for a few years in Detroit too. In 4 years with the Lions, he shifted back and forth between starter and backup for fellow shit quarterback Joey Harrington. He finished with 10 touchdowns and 13 interceptions for a 55 passer rating and a laughable 43.8% completion percentage gross. Green Bay Packers, Jerry Taggy. You might not believe it, since Green Bay has been saddled with back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks for the last 30 years, but there was once a span between Bart Starr and Brett Favre where they mostly churned out dog shit at the quarterback position. Taggy was drafted 11th overall in 1972 to be the next Bart Starr, when it turns out he ended up being more like Fart Starr. Get it? Because he stunk like a fart? I'm doing. Finished his 3-year career with 3 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. Pew. Houston Texans, Brock Osweiler. Yes, here is one most NFL fans will remember.
Let's say David Carr.
Parlayed a decent half season behind a legendary Super Bowl winning defense in 2015 into a massive contract with the QB-hungry Texans. In just 1 year with Houston, Osweiler was laughably bad, but thanks to Houston's elite defense, he somehow made the playoffs and even won a playoff game against Connor Cook. Then he got destroyed versus New England the next week and was traded to Cleveland. Handsome guy, though. Indianapolis Colts, Curtis Painter. I'll always remember Curtis Painter for looking like an alcoholic version of Kurt Cobain. So, just Kurt Cobain. Painter instilled fear into people every time he stepped onto an NFL field.
Alcoholic version of Kurt Cobain.
Playing for. He sucked in a few brief appearances late in 2009 to ruin Indianapolis' perfect season, and he sucked in 2011 replacing an injured Peyton. He then sucked in a few brief appearances with the Giants in 2013. Overall, he just sucked harder than Jenna Jameson in her prime. Jacksonville Jaguars, Blaine Gabbert. Gabbert was drafted 10th overall in 2011 to be Jacksonville's franchise quarterback, and, well, let's just say that didn't pan out the way anybody
I don't know, does Chad Henne count? I doubt it.
Terrible play, finishing with 22 touchdowns, 24 4 interceptions and a 66.4 rating. He also went 5-22 in 27 starts. Ever since then, he's somehow managed to bounce around.
Chad Henne was never god-awful. He just wasn't good.
He even won a Super Bowl with Tampa in 2020. Maybe he'll
Does
finally
that
get a
make
chance
sense?
to start for Tampa when Tom Brady retires for good in 2050. Kansas City Chiefs, Brody Croy.
Did you just hear what he just said?
The league, collecting checks as a spot starter / backup, and he even won a Super Bowl with Tampa in 2020. Maybe he'll finally get a chance to start for Tampa when Tom Brady retires for good in 2050. Kansas City Chiefs, Brody Croy. First off, I just want to give Brody props for his spoken
good luck with that.
Very respectful woman. Okay, now let's get to his play on the field. He started just 10 games in 5 years with KC, throwing 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and going 0-10. That's right, he didn't win a single game. Why is it always the shittiest NFL quarterbacks who have the hottest wives? Las Vegas Raiders, Andrew Walter. Yes, that's right. The Raiders have employed a quarterback worse than Jamarcus Russell, which is obviously no small feat. No offense to Rex Ryan. That quarterback's name is Andrew Walter, who finished his terrible NFL career with 3 touchdowns and 16 interceptions for a comically bad 52.6 passer rating. He also went 2-7 as a starter, and even that surprises me. How the fuck did 2 NFL teams lose to this guy? They should be arrested immediately. LA Chargers, Ryan Leaf. Pretty easy choice here. Not only the worst quarterback in Chargers history, but probably the worst quarterback in NFL history, and maybe the worst draft bust in sports history. It's still baffling to think how a guy who was viewed as a potential
superstar quarterback
this
Nick guy. He wants to join. This Harold.
Yeah, Ryan Leaf was supposed to be really fucking good, and then he was just a bust.
At least he's finally gotten his life together. LA Rams, Nick Foles. Yes, that's right. Big Dick Nick finds his way onto this list, further showing why he's had one of the greatest careers in sports history.
Are you kidding me?
With high expectations, and he completely shit the bed, throwing 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions and getting benched for Case Keenum. He only lasted 1 year there before being cut. It's incredible to think just a few years later he would win Super Bowl MVP against Belichick and Brady's Patriots. Miami Dolphins, Rick Norton. Norton was a pretty highly touted prospect for the
6 touchdowns and 30 picks.
And he would end up being one of the worst quarterbacks ever. In 4 years with Miami, he started just 11 games, going 1-10, and finishing with a vomit-inducing 6 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and 28.1 passer rating. I'm not even sure how that's possible. How did nobody stop this from happening? Minnesota Vikings, Christian Ponder. Remember when I said shitty NFL quarterbacks always get the hottest wives? Ponder is further proof of that. Drafted 12th overall.
I mean, can you think of anybody really worse?
He ended up being
Johnny Jones was bad.
Before spending his 4th season mostly on the bench. He finished with 38
Johnny
touchdowns.
Jones was so much worse than.
I'm just saying the Vikings haven't had really much trash quarterbacks.
Handing the ball out to Adrian Peterson, though. Can't deny that. New England Patriots, Doug Flutie. Before he went on to become a legendary CFL quarterback and reignite his NFL career in Buffalo, Flutie was a shitty quarterback in New England who was so small you could fit him into your pocket. In his first stint with New England from 1987 to 1989, he threw 11 touchdowns, 14 interceptions for a dreadful 61.2 rating. He would actually return to New England in 2005 for his final season.
New England
executed a drop kick in a meaningless late regular season.
New England really hasn't had bad quarterbacks.
Like Flutie, Werfel is a former Heisman Trophy winner. Unlike Flutie, there would be no second act of redemption in the NFL for Werfel, who spent 3 years in New Orleans and put up vomit-worthy stats of 9 touchdowns, 60 interceptions, and a 51.2 passer rating. He completed under 50% of his throws and was sacked on an astounding 15% of his dropbacks. He stunk so hard he earned the name Danny Woeful. New York Giants, Joe Pisarcik. Pisarcik lives on in NFL lore for his infamous gaffe late in a 1978 game versus Philadelphia that's now known as the Miracle in the Meadowlands. But hey, did you also know Pisarcik also just sucked in general? He somehow started 27 games for the Giants across 3 seasons and racked up 18 touchdowns to 43 interceptions for a comical 46.3 rating. The biggest surprise is that he somehow won 8 games there. Whoever lost to him should be ashamed. New York Jets, Bryce Petty. There have been many shitty Jets quarterbacks over the years, and who knows, maybe Zach Wilson will earn this distinction someday, but for now, it belongs to Petty, who finished his forgettable NFL career with just 4 touchdowns to 10
Bryce
interceptions
Petty
and a
was terrible.
57.7 rating. He also went 1-6 as a starter. This was the crap quarterbacks the Patriots
Which is sad because I liked Bryce Petty at Baylor.
Philadelphia Eagles, King Hill. No, not King of the Hill. The guy's name was actually King Hill, and he stunk at playing quarterback, despite being the first overall pick in 1958. After flaming out with the Cardinals, he lasted.
Do you agree with that, Austin, since you're a Jets fan?
What, Bryce Petty?
Yeah.
No. Not particularly.
Who was worse?
I would say Gino.
Gino wasn't that bad.
Well, I mean, Bryce Petty never really had the chance.
I don't know, it sucks because like I said, I liked Bryce Petty at Baylor.
A spot starter and accumulated 29 touchdowns to 51 interceptions for a gross 54.8 rating. In those 8 years, he started just 18 games and went 5-12 and more.
How the fuck did he last 8 years?
Make sure you're actually fucking good at what you do.
King Hill.
Steelers, Kent Nix. We think of the Steelers as one of the blue blood franchises of the NFL thanks to their consistent success since the 1970s. But before the 70s, they were seen as a joke, and bad quarterbacks like Nix were a big reason why. In 3 years in Pittsburgh, he threw 14 touchdowns, 33 interceptions for a 46 passer rating. He started 12
I
games
just heard the
with 3 and 9.
experience.
He would later go on to play for the Bears, who can't help but attract terrible quarterbacks. San Francisco 49ers, Ken Dorsey. If not for my attempts qualifier, I would have put Jim Druckenmiller here, but instead, Dorsey gets the spot. He had one of the best
I
college
remember
careers of any
Jim
quarterback ever, but it
Druckenmiller.
didn't translate to
Oh
pros
my
at all.
God,
In
was
3
that
years
dude
in San
bad?
Fran, he started 10 games, going 2-8, and throwing 8 touchdowns
I think he was
to 11
worse than
interceptions for a
Dorsey.
63.7 rating. Such a hard
Yeah.
worker, though. Seattle Seahawks, Kelly Stouffer. Stouffer's career is hilarious. He was drafted 7th overall in 1987 by the Cardinals, but refused to play for them, so he sat out a year until he was traded to the Seahawks, where he proceeded to suck major ass. In 5 years with Seattle, he started 16 games, going 5-11, and throwing just 7 touchdowns to 19 interceptions for a minuscule 54.5 rating. He would never play another down in the NFL again once leaving Seattle. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bruce Gradkowski. I want to give a shout out
Oh my
to
God.
Randy Hedberg, who in just 90 passes
Fucking
in
Bruce
1977
Gradkowski.
threw 0 touchdowns and 10 interceptions for
He's
the
not
Bucs.
the worst.
Unfortunately, he didn't meet my attempt qualifier, so the honor goes to Gradkowski instead. In 2 years with Tampa, Gradkowski threw 0 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bruce Gradkowski. I want to give a shout out to Randy Hedberg, who in just 90 passes in 1977 threw 0 touchdowns and 10 interceptions for the Bucs. Unfortunately, he didn't meet my attempt qualifier, so the honor goes to Gradkowski instead. In 2 years with Tampa, Gradkowski threw 9 touchdowns to 10 interceptions for a dreadful 65 passer rating. He started 11 games and went 3-8. He managed to carve out an 11-year NFL career mostly holding a clipboard. Good for him, I guess. Tennessee Titans, Lynn Dickey. Dickey would eventually go on to be an exciting gunslinger who had some good seasons for the Packers in the early to mid-80s, but his time with the then Houston Oilers was dreadful. In 5 years there, he started just 10 games and threw 8 touchdowns to 28 interceptions for a 43.2 rating. He's one of those guys who kind of slips through the cracks of history. Washington Commanders, Ralph Guglielmi. Ralph Guglielmi sounds like a Sopranos character, but really he was just a shitty NFL quarterback from the 50s and 60s. Drafted 4th overall by Washington in 1955, he never came close to living up to the high expectations. In just 4 years with Washington, he started 21 games, going 5-13-3. He threw for 17 touchdowns and 40 interceptions for a 43.5 passer rating. Very, very stinky. Verizon Unlimited is going ultra, so you get more than
Fuck Verizon Unlimited.
in many more cities. You get up to 10
I have
times the speed
Verizon.
at no extra cost.
I do
And then
too.
Get a Google Pixel 6 on us. Seriously? Yep, it's our best plan ever. Verizon is going ultra, so you can get more. Welcome to Grand Canyon University. Together, we remain unified as a champion of inclusion, community, and equal opportunity for all.
Why the fuck does Grand Canyon University get so many commercials?
This is the College Tour.
Streaming now on Amazon Prime.
Goodness. It's in the middle of fucking Arizona. No one gives a fuck.
In this video, I'm going to name every NFL team's best quarterback ever. Please note, I'm only taking into account what the player did for that franchise. Without further ado, let's begin. Arizona Cardinals, Jim Hart. Tough choice. Carson Palmer had an MVP caliber 2015 season, and Kurt Warner took the team to the Super Bowl, but both weren't there for very long. Every franchise record belongs to Hart, who played 18 years for the club, making 4 Pro Bowls. Team success largely eluded Hart, though, as he went just 0-2 in the playoffs. Cardinals fans are surely hoping Kyler Murray will one day make this question a no-brainer. Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan. An easy choice.
He's better than Vic.
I guess from 2011 to 2018, but after that,
Here, Ryan has thrown for almost 60,000 yards, 367 touchdowns, made 4 Pro Bowls, won an MVP, and came excruciatingly close to winning the franchise its only Super Bowl in 2016. He's kind of boring and will never wow you with his physical gifts, but he gave the team in turmoil its franchise quarterback for a decade and a half. If he had had better defenses throughout his career, no doubt he would have won more. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. It was tough to leave off Joe Flacco, especially after his legendary 2012 playoff run resulted in a ring. But let's be real here, Lamar is a better and more impactful player than Flacco ever was. In 4 years as a starter, he's made 2 Pro Bowls, won an MVP, and established himself as the best running quarterback in NFL history. The only thing eluding Lamar at this stage is playoff success, and if that ever comes, he could become a Hall of Famer. Buffalo Bills, Jim Kelly. Josh Allen will one day take over this spot, but for now, Kelly is still the guy. The Hall of Famer made 5 Pro Bowls and 1 first-team All-Pro during the team's glory era. Of course, with Kelly and the 90s Bills, it's impossible to overlook them losing 4 straight Super Bowls, but on the other hand, making 4 straight Super Bowls is insane. And Kelly did his job well enough to win versus the Giants in 1990. He wasn't a great playoff quarterback and didn't play for that long compared to other Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but he's earned his distinction. Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton. A no-brainer here. Cam was never an elite passer, but before Lamar Jackson, he was arguably the most impactful running quarterback in NFL history. He also brought a swagger and flair to a franchise that needed it. He made 3 Pro Bowls and 1 MVP in 2015 when he led the team to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he ran into a legendary defense once there, and he never reached his 2015 heights again. But Cam will always be synonymous with the Panthers franchise. I just dabbed in his honor. Chicago Bears, Sid Luckman. The Bears' history with quarterbacks is so
Sid
awful you have to go all the
Luckman.
way back to when Hitler was
Luckman
still alive
was
to find a time
phenomenal.
when they had a good one. Luckman is a Hall of Famer, a 3-time Pro Bowler,
I know,
a
but the
5-time
name
All-Pro,
is just
and
funny.
4-time NFL champion. He also made the NFL's All-Decade team of the 1940s. Imagine that, the Chicago Bears quarterback making the All-Decade team nowadays. Hilarious. Cincinnati Bengals, Ken Anderson. Basically a coin flip between
Joe Burrow will
Anderson and
take
the
this
successor,
over one day.
Lamar Esiason, but I went with Anderson due to more great seasons with
Lamar
Cincinnati. Anderson
Esiason
made
is
4
probably the
Pro
best.
Bowls and was
It's
named
the
1981 MVP. The same year he led Cincy to the Super Bowl against the 49ers.
They're talking about
where he lost the
strictly
heartbreaker.
franchise.
Anderson led the league in passer rating 4
That's
times,
what he's talking
passing
about.
yards 2 times, and completion percentage 3
Strictly
times.
the
Had
years
Cincy
they
won
played for
Super
that
Bowl, he'd
team.
probably be in Canton right now.
Oh,
Tough
okay.
scene. Cleveland Browns,
Oh
Otto
yeah,
Graham.
Boomer
Pretty
plays the
clear choice
Giants.
here. Graham was basically the Tom Brady of his
I
day.
think Joe Burrow's going to take over that spot, though. For the best.
Maybe.
No, it's not a maybe. He will. Literally, he will.
That's 3 times. Had Cincy won that Super Bowl, he'd probably be in Canton right now. Tough scene. Cleveland Browns, Otto Graham. Pretty clear choice here. Graham was basically the Tom Brady of his era in terms of winning championships. He made 5 Pro Bowls, 7 All-Pro teams, won 3 MVPs, and 7 rings. 4 of those rings were in the AAFC, but he then won 3 more rings in the NFL. He was a professional starter for 10 seasons and made the title game all 10 years. Individually, he led the league in yards 5 times, touchdown passes 3 times, and passer rating 5 times. Even if you think he was a product of great teams and coaching, he still got the job done. Remind you of anybody else? I think Cleveland fans today would take Graham's win-loss percentage from their current quarterback any day. Dallas Cowboys, Roger Staubach. Troy Aikman has the rings, but not the stats. Tony Romo has the stat, but not the rings. Staubach had both. The 6-time Pro Bowler and 2-time Super Bowl champion somehow was never named first-team All-Pro, despite his consistently excellent numbers and efficiency.
Yeah, I'd rather have
Staubach's
Starbaugh
value
over
in totals
Troy
aren't
Aikman.
overwhelming due to the era he played in, and the fact that he got a late start
Navy General, nice.
Respect the troops, but he played a huge role in Dallas becoming America's team, and in addition to winning almost 75% of his starts, he played with a flair for the dramatic and was exciting to watch. Denver Broncos, John Elway. While I still think Peyton Manning is the best quarterback the Broncos have ever had in a vacuum, as far as career, there's no other option than Elway. Elway made 9 Pro Bowls, won 2 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl MVP, and was named Associated Press MVP in 1987. Debates about Elway's greatness still rage on today due to his numbers not being that great for a Hall of Fame quarterback, but the guy could play. 5 Super Bowl appearances will attest to that. Elway's career still remains more about potential, as in what could he have done if he had been in a better situation in his physical prime. We'll never know, but what we do know is that Elway knows how to slam back some beers. Am I right? Moving on. Detroit Lions, Bobby Lane. Matthew Stafford fans will be upset about this, but I had to go with Bobby Lane. Lane was known as a party animal who'd steal your girl. As for on the field, the thing
Are
that
you
actually
friends
matters
with
in this
this Harold
discussion,
guy,
Lane was one
Hanson?
of the best of his era.
I don't
With the
think
Lions,
so.
he made 4 Pro Bowls, 2
Can you
All-Pro
accept
teams, and
this
won
friend?
2
Because I
titles
think
as a
it.
starting quarterback. Although His
not letting
playoff
me because
stat
of your
line of 1
settings.
touchdown and 12 interceptions is pretty horrific regardless of the era. In fact, ever since the Lions traded Lane early in the 1958 season, they've been a laughingstock of a team. Don't fuck with the blonde bomber. Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. One of the toughest choices of any franchise, as Green Bay has been blessed with 3 legendary quarterbacks in Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Rodgers. Starr won the most, but he just doesn't have anywhere near the quantity of Favre or Rodgers. Favre certainly had the quantity and won a Super Bowl, but also a lot of mess seasons and playoff disappointments. Rodgers himself has both the quantity and quality, as well as a Super Bowl win, although his playoff career outside of 2010 can only be described as a disappointment. Still, Rodgers gets the nod here for his legendary efficiency and 4 MVPs. It's just a shame he hasn't been more Texans.
What happened to you? Did somebody say something to piss you off?
Your roommate
That's
just
it?
God damn it.
You need a job that gets you out
What?
of here.
What's going
Fucking
on?
ads.
You do. Watson, the youngest NFL out of 2010, can only be described as a disappointment.
Did they say
Still, Rodgers
Watson
gets
for
the nod
best in
here for his
Houston history?
legendary efficiency and 4 MVPs. It's just a shame he hasn't been more consistent in the playoffs. Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson. The youngest NFL franchise really came down to 2 choices, Matt Schaub and Deshaun Watson. Schaub is known
Matt
nowadays
Schaub.
for his pick sixes, but from 2007 to 2012, he was a good NFL quarterback when healthy. But the choice here is Watson. Watson was on track for an all-time great rookie year before getting hurt. Then he made the Pro Bowl 3 straight years from 2018 to 2020, as well as the playoffs twice. Watson was primed to become an elite quarterback with a foreseeable future in Houston, but his off-field habits ruined that. His NFL future is still in limbo as of this video, and his time with Houston is over. Real shame. Indianapolis Colts, Peyton Manning. With all due respect to Johnny Unitas, this was a clear choice. In his 13 seasons as the Colts starting quarterback, Peyton made 11 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro teams, won 4 MVPs, a Super Bowl, and a Super Bowl MVP. Not to mention the shitload of stat categories he led in those various seasons. The Colts won 12-plus games under Manning for 7 straight seasons at one point. The only bugaboo with Peyton was always the playoffs, and his teams didn't win as much there as they probably should have. But the once hapless Colts were transformed into title contenders for a decade thanks to the sheriff, Jacksonville Jaguars, Mark Brunell. Brunell's time with Jacksonville is kind of underrated if you ask me. He made 3 Pro Bowls, led the league in passing yards in 1996, and made 2 conference championship games. Nobody will ever confuse him for a Hall of Famer, but he provided the expansion franchise with stability and above-average production at the quarterback position for a prolonged period of time, and he deserves respect for that since it's not that easy to do. Just ask Tim Couch and David Carr. Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. The choice here came down to Hall of Famer Len Dawson or the young wonderkind who has taken the league by storm over the last 4 years.
Henson, I'm gonna invite you
At just
this guy.
26 years of age, Mahomes already has 4 Pro Bowls, an MVP, a Super Bowl win, and a Super Bowl MVP. He's already made 4 AFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowls. Even after an up-and-down 2021 season, he is still the all-time leader in many quarterback efficiency metrics. I just hope his disappointing losses in Super Bowl 55 and the 2020...
What the hell?
I would friend this guy so you can join this. Because for some reason somebody's settings is...
One AFC Championship game aren't harbingers for the rest of his playoff career since he's so exciting to watch. He should win 3 rings minimum in his career, and every year he doesn't feels like a massive missed opportunity. Las Vegas Raiders, Ken Stabler. Much like fellow good old boy Bobby Lane, Stabler played hard and partied hard.
That's the reason why. Oh shit. I can't add him because you're not friends with him for some reason.
Well, I haven't even got a friend request, so.
But but he was also the best quarterback the Raiders have ever had. He's in the Hall of Fame. He made 4 Pro Bowls, won the 1974 MVP, and a Super Bowl ring in 1976. He won 72% of his starts with the franchise and also made 5 AFC Championship games. Unfortunately for Stabler, he had a lot of playoff heartbreaks, including the Immaculate Reception and 4 AFC Championship game losses, including 2 to his hated rival Pittsburgh. Stabler's stats took a hit, but his stats with the Raiders still hold up pretty well today, especially his playoff stats. I'm going to slam back a few beers tonight in his honor. Los Angeles Chargers, Dan Fouts. One of the toughest choices on this list was between Phillip Rivers and Dan Fouts. Neither had much playoff success and tended to implode in high-pressure situations, but in the end, I went with Fouts due to a better peak. Rivers made more Pro Bowls, but Fouts made 2 All-Pro teams, whereas Rivers never did. Fouts also should have won MVP.
Who has
Really?
more
over
kids?
a goddamn kicker, whereas Rivers was never really in the MVP convo. Fouts also made 2 AFC Championship games compared to just 1 for Rivers. It's close, and on the right day, I might be convinced to go with Rivers, but this might all be for nothing since Justin Herbert should take this spot one day if he stays healthy. Los Angeles Rams, Kurt Warner. Warner only started about 3 seasons for the Rams, but my goodness, did he make the most of them. In those 3
Let me
years,
know when
he
you
made
get a
3
friend
Pro
request
Bowls, 2
from him.
All-Pros, won 2 MVPs, a Super Bowl, and a Super Bowl MVP. He beautifully orchestrated the greatest show on turf to success. He led the league in completion percentage 3 times, touchdown passes twice, passer rating 3 times, net yards per attempt 3 times, and adjusted net yards per attempt 3 times. It's a shame for everybody outside of New England that he couldn't win that second ring in Super Bowl 36 against the Patriots.
Oh my God.
Was from 1999 to 2001. Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino. Bob Greasy made 8 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro teams, and won 2 rings, but he doesn't hold a candle to Marino. Marino, to this very day, remains one of the most respected quarterbacks ever, despite never winning a Super Bowl. It's not hard to understand why. He made 9 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro teams, 1 MVP in 1984, with arguably the best season any quarterback has ever had. When he retired in 1999, he held every single record for quarterbacks besides interceptions. He led the league in passing yards 5 times, passing touchdowns 3 times, and he did it all with a flair and arrogance that was endearing to watch. If he played today, there's no telling the kind of ridiculous numbers that he'd put up. Minnesota Vikings, Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton had 2 stints with the Vikings. The first was from 1961 to 1966, where he made 2 Pro Bowls before jettisoning off to the Giants for 5 seasons. When Tarkenton returned to Minnie from 1972 to 1978, the team really took off. He made 3 more Pro Bowls, including winning the 1975 MVP. The Vikings also made it to 3 Super Bowls in this stretch, but they came away empty-handed. Like Marino, Tarkenton retired with pretty much every single record for quarterbacks. Tarkenton wasn't a great playoff quarterback, but his career and longevity is extremely underrated, especially considering the era he played in. New England Patriots, Tom Brady. Just narrowly beating out Drew Bledsoe and Matt Castle for the honor. Brady's accomplishments and rings don't need to be rehashed again here, but I guess I'll do it
Did
anyway.
you just say Matt
He made
Castle?
14 Pro Bowls, 2 Pro teams, and won 3 MVPs with the Patriots, but those are all window dressing compared to the 6 rings and 4 Super Bowl MVPs he won with the franchise. Sure, as I've stated many times, I hated his style of play and how he always seemed to get bailed out in every big moment, but I can't change what happened, unfortunately. Hopefully he stays retired to become a full-time junk science salesman. New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees. I always looked at Brees as the unlucky version of Brady, since they were both Big Ten quarterbacks who played forever with a pretty boring style of play that put up huge numbers. The difference was that Brees almost always had terrible defenses, whereas Brady didn't. But enough Brady. Brees remains the best free agent signing in NFL history after joining the Saints heading into 2006. He ended up throwing for over 68,000 yards and almost 500 touchdown passes with the team. He won a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP in 2009. He made 12 Pro Bowls and an All-Pro team. Not bad for a guy who was seen as a risky signing at the time due to his shoulder. I think it worked out okay. New York Giants, Eli Manning. The choice for best Giants quarterback basically came down to Manning and Phil Simms. But in the end, I went with Eli for his unmatched longevity and, of course, his 2 Super Bowl wins and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. That's really the story with Eli. He was never an elite quarterback at any point of his 16-year career. He had 2 magical playoff runs in 2007 and 2011, but went 0-4 in the playoffs in his other 4 appearances. He led the league in interceptions 3 times, but he also made 4 Pro Bowls and threw for over 57,000 yards and 366 touchdowns. It's fitting his final career win-loss record was 117 and 117, since that's really what he was, average. But helping to stop
Did you
Brady
get
from
the friend
winning 2
request?
more rings is much appreciated. Thanks, Eli. New York
Did you
Jets, Joe
accept it?
Namath is a weird
Nothing.
case of a guy who has been overrated for so long that he's kind of become unseen, since that's really what he was, average. But helping to stop Brady from winning 2 more rings is much appreciated. Thanks, Eli. New York Jets, Joe Namath. Namath is a weird case of a guy who has been overrated for so long that he's kind of become underrated in some ways. He's arguably the worst quarterback in the Hall of Fame, but that doesn't mean the guy was a scrub. Sure, his stats look bad
I don't
compared to
understand
quarterbacks
these
nowadays,
settings.
but Namath made 5 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro
Whose
team, and of
settings
course
is
had his
it?
famous guaranteed Super Bowl win,
Probably
Super Bowl
is.
MVP, in Super Bowl III versus the Colts. Individually, Namath led the league in passing yards 3 times and touchdown passes once. When he was healthy before his knees gave him trouble later on, he was an objectively good quarterback. Just don't leave your girlfriend around. Philadelphia Eagles, Donovan McNabb. My favorite athlete growing up and the reason I became a Philadelphia Eagles fan. McNabb kind of gets forgotten about today because he never won a ring, but he was an elite quarterback for the better part of a decade. He made 6 Pro Bowls and finished his Eagles career with almost 33,000 passing yards and 216 touchdowns. He led the team to 5 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl appearance in 2004. He had his issues in big games and deserves
Donovan
some
McNabb, though. Well, I guess.
the team never winning at all. But he was incredibly exciting to watch, and I choose to focus on all the good times he had with the team. Pittsburgh Steelers, Terry Bradshaw. That's right, I'm taking Bradshaw over the famous women respecter Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger has some of the better stats, there's no question about it, but that's largely due to the
Famous women
Bradshaw
respecter.
got off to a brutal start in his career, which heavily influences his career stats, but his peak years were excellent for his era. He made 3 Pro Bowls and won league MVP in 1978. Bradshaw also benefited from the steel curtain defense, but Roethlisberger also had elite defenses for most of his career. The real reason I went with Bradshaw is that he was a better postseason quarterback and excellent in the Super Bowl. He won 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and you could argue he deserved a 3rd Super Bowl MVP in 1975. Ben was not great in the playoffs, and especially not in the Super Bowl. Don't let Bradshaw's moron act he puts on for TV fool you. The guy could play. He had a rocket arm, and he accomplished a lot. San Francisco 49ers, Joe Montana. Another coin flip between Montana and Steve Young. And a while ago, I might have sided with Young due to his superior efficiency metrics, but after further review, it has to be Montana. Much like with the Bradshaw-Roethlisberger debate, it largely came down to the playoffs. Young had a stellar 1994 postseason and Super Bowl MVP performance, but his playoff career outside of that year is very underwhelming. Montana himself had playoff struggles from 1985 to 1987, but he's still the best Super Bowl quarterback of all time by far, won 4 rings and 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and his career playoff stats are arguably the best ever on a per-game basis. Oh yeah, Montana also made 7 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro teams, and won 2 MVPs with San Fran. So it's not like he was a slouch in the regular season. Joe Cool forever. Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson. Wilson came out of nowhere as a little-known 3rd-round pick in 2012 to become one of the NFL's consistently elite quarterback. Through 10 seasons, he's made 9 Pro Bowls and won a Super Bowl in 2013. He's famously never made an All-Pro team or gotten a single MVP vote, but that doesn't change how he's kept the Seahawks relevant as the Legion of Boom fell apart. Wilson has some of the best efficiency metrics of all time, and barring a sudden retirement or major injury, he'll retire with huge counting stats as well. He's going to deservedly make the Hall of Fame someday. I just wish he didn't throw that fucking pass to Ricardo Lockett on the goal line in Super Bowl 49. Why'd you do that, Russ? You really hurt me. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady. This selection speaks to both how good Brady was with Tampa, barf, and how bad the rest of the Buccaneers' history with quarterbacks is. Quite simply, Brady put up 2 monster statistical seasons in Tampa and won a Super Bowl. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with Tampa, but his stats aren't close to Brady's. Then you got guys like Jameis Winston, Josh Freeman, Doug Williams, and Vinny Testaverde who can't be seriously argued over Brady either. It is what it is. God damn it, Jared Cook, why did you have to fumble that pass? Tennessee Titans, Steve McNair. A real tough choice between Warren Moon and Steve McNair. McNair made 2 AFC Championship games and a Super Bowl, whereas Moon never even made an AFC Championship game. But
Then
McNair's
check
playoff
your
stats are worse
settings.
than Moon. McNair won co-MVP in 2003, whereas Moon never won an MVP. All the choices
My settings are normal. Someone that's not my friend can join the party anyway. Mine are normal. I'm not... Well, there was... Back when I didn't have, what's his name on my friends list. He was in the party like normal.
on this list, this is the one I'm least sure about. Two have almost identical production with the team, and in the end, I guess I'll go with McNair because he had people thinking Jeff Fisher was an elite coach for a while. The Washington Commanders, Sammy Baugh. I feel a little dirty picking a guy who played primarily in the 1940s, but Baugh was so unbelievably dominant, and Washington has never really had any other great quarterbacks outside of Joe Theismann for a few years in the 80s, and Sonny Jurgensen, who never won anything. Baugh made 6 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro teams, and won 2 championships as quarterback. He led the NFL in completion percentage 8 times, passing yards 4 times, touchdown passes 2 times, and passer rating 3 times. He's also arguably the best punter of all time and had 31 career interceptions while playing defense. He's one of the few real old-timers I say could hang in today's league. No offense to Aaron Hernandez.
Oh my god, did you hear the ending?
No.
Just listen to this.
Rating 3 times. Quarterback. He led the NFL in completion percentage 8 times, passing yards 4 times, touchdown passes 2 times, and passer rating 3 times. He's also arguably the best punter of all time and had 31 career interceptions while playing defense. He's one of the few real old-timers I say could hang in today's league. No offense to Aaron Hernandez.
Oh my god. And who was this quarterback?
Shit. Let me go back.
In this video, I'm going to name every Tennessee Titans Steve McNair. A real tough choice between a little dirty picking a guy who played primarily in the 1940s, but Baugh was so unbelievably
Sammy
dominant.
Baugh.
Washington has never really had any other great quarterbacks outside of Joe Theismann for a few years in the 80s and Sonny Jurgensen, who never won anything. Baugh made 6 Pro Bowls, Terry Bradshaw. That's right. I'm taking Bradshaw over the famous women respecter Ben Roethlisberger.
Famous women respecter Ben Roethlisberger.
In this video, I will show why every NBA championship since 1950, when the NBA was officially created, has an asterisk on it and doesn't count. Some titles have bigger asterisks.
What?
None are 100% legit. If you get butthurt watching this, then I've done my job. Let's go. 1950. There were only 11 teams, and rebounds weren't even counted yet. Can you believe that? 1951 to 1953. There were only 10 teams. 1954. There were only 9 teams. 1955 to 1961. There were only 8 teams. 1962 to 1966. There were only 9 teams. In 1967, there were only 10 teams. And from 1968 to 1976, half of the best players in the world were in the ABA. So that about wipes out the majority of the Celtics titles. You're welcome. Now we start getting into the real shit after the NBA and ABA.
I know you love hearing that.
1976-77
What?
season. 1976.
Listen.
That about wipes out only 10 teams.
Listen.
And from 1968 to 1976, half of the best players in the world were in the ABA. So that about wipes out the majority of the Celtics titles. You're welcome. Now we start getting into the real shit after the NBA and ABA merged, starting in the 1976-77 season.
Fucking bastards. I hate the fucking Celtics.
The NBA referees went on strike during the playoffs. 1978 Bullets. Reigning MVP Bill Walton broke his foot in February when his team was 50-10, so Washington didn't have to face the reigning NBA champions and the best team in the league. The 1979 Sonics. Seattle benefited from injuries, knocking out 2 Bullet starters, Kevin Greavy and Tom Henderson, in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. The 1980 Lakers, thanks to a trade a few years prior, LA took Magic Johnson with the first overall pick, despite finishing 47
There we go.
35
We got that fixed. I don't know why that was like that. That was very,
they also
very
won
weird.
a coin flip over Chicago to get the first overall pick. Without Magic, there is no 1980
Anyways,
title,
where
or
you
really
at?
any of the Lakers titles in the 1980s. The 1981 Celtics. The Celtics got to face a losing team in the NBA Finals, the 40-42 Houston Rockets. Can you imagine if this shit happened today with Twitter? The 1982 Lakers. The top 2 seeds in 1982 were able to skip the first round, and the 76ers were a number 3 seed, so they had to play an extra series before the NBA Finals, whereas LA didn't, thanks to playing in a far weaker Western Conference. For reference, the Sixers played 15 games before the
The
Finals.
Western
The Lakers
Conference
8.
was
Of
weak at
course,
one
the
point.
fresher Lakers
Yeah.
ended up winning the series in 6. The 1983 76ers. Instead of winning 4 playoff series like real men, the 76ers only had to win 3 playoff series to win it all. Soft. Also, Lakers star rookie James Worthy was out for the finals with an injury. The 1984 Celtics. Lakers Hall of Fame forward Jamal Wilkes, who averaged 17 points per game in 1984, missed the first round of the playoffs with a gastrointestinal virus. He then lost his starting gig and became a non-factor in the playoffs. Despite this, Boston still barely scraped by LA in 7 games. It's not hard to believe that with a healthy Wilkes, LA wins. The 1985 Lakers. Boston's Cedric Maxwell, who won the 1981 Finals MVP, missed 25 games in 1985 due to knee surgery late in the season and was a shell of himself upon his return. With their finals opponent battered, LA cruised in a relatively easy 6-game series. 1986 Celtics. Instead of having to face their hated rival and 62-win Lakers in the finals, Boston got to play a young and inexperienced Rockets team that caught lightning in a bottle and upset LA in the Western Conference Finals. Unsurprisingly, Boston beat Houston in 6 games. Houston's 1986 title run would end up being a flash in the pan, as every player besides Hakeem Olajuwon would end up either leaving or self-destructing shortly thereafterwards. 1987 Lakers. LA faced a badly injured Boston team in the finals and didn't have to deal with Len Bias, Boston's second overall pick in 1986, who died prematurely before ever playing a second in the NBA. With Bias on the squad, Boston wouldn't have relied as much on their older veterans like Bird, McHale, and Parrish, and would have had a better answer for LA's James Worthy. Despite this, Boston still took LA to 6 games, but it wasn't enough.
No,
1988
I have
Lakers.
some
Pistons
stuff to
star
show you if
Isaiah
you,
Thomas suffered a
wherever you
major
are
ankle
at. I
injury
don't
in
know where
Game
you're at
6
right
and
now.
barely played in Game 7, which Detroit lost by just 3 points. Also, Bill Laimbeer was called for a phantom foul on Kareem late in Game 6 that allowed LA to extend the series to Game 7 and waste a historic 43-point effort by Thomas in Game 6. 1989 Pistons. Magic Johnson blew out his hamstring in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, ending both his MVP season and the legitimacy of the Pistons title. 1990 Pistons. Arvydas Sabonis wasn't playing in America yet, so Detroit avoided him starting for Portland in the Finals. Detroit also benefited from Scottie Pippen suffering a migraine in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals versus Chicago. The 1991 Bulls. LA's top scorer James Worthy and top shooter Byron Scott both got hurt and couldn't play in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Also, at this point, Magic Johnson probably had, HIV, so yeah. The 1992 Bulls. Arvydas Sabonis, who Portland drafted in 1986 but wasn't allowed to join the NBA until 1995, was in his prime playing overseas instead of on the Blazers. This is important because Chicago's biggest weakness during their dynasty years was the center position, and Sabonis definitely would have exploited that. It also didn't help that Portland completely shit their pants in the fourth quarter of Game 6 against Chicago's backups with Jordan on the bench.
We need to go
1993
to sleep.
Bulls. Chicago got to face an offensively challenged Knicks team in the Eastern Conference Finals before getting to face a mediocre defensive team like Phoenix in the Finals.
We gotta
Phoenix,
come
which
in
had the
house
best
to
home
go to
record in the
sleep.
NBA in 1993, went 0-3 at home in the Finals, including the decisive Game 6, where they shot just 5 of 22 in the fourth quarter in a game they lost by just 1 point. 1994 Rockets. MJ was suspended and off playing baseball. Also, John Starks was a double agent for Houston, shooting 2 for 18 in Game 7 of the Finals, a game which
First of
Houston
all,
won by
follow
just
me.
6
I was
points.
able to get this with the
1995
Silk Touch
Rockets. MJ
pickaxe,
came back late in the year,
and
but wasn't back to
believe me,
being
it's very
100%
rare
MJ
to get
just
it,
yet.
and
So
I
Houston
luckily
got to
got it.
face a young Orlando team instead of the Bulls in the Finals. Also, I would be...
It's a blaze spawner. Alright, Silk Touch pickaxe. With the new things, it has a chance. It's a hard to get, but it has a chance of you getting it with Silk Touch. Alright.
remiss if I didn't mention Nick Anderson missing 4
Over here.
straight free throws at the end of Game 1, which would have won Orlando the game and completely fucked up Orlando's psyche the rest of the series, which ended in a Houston sweep. 1996 Bulls. The NBA added more expansion teams in Toronto and Vancouver
We have like
to
over
water
like
down
2
NBA's
stacks of
competition
diamonds and
even
emeralds
more.
and stuff. And we
Two-time
have a ton of
all-defense
iron.
member Nate
So I
McMillan's
went
back was
mining.
fucked up, and he barely played in the
And-
finals. But most importantly, Seattle coach George Karl inexplicably didn't put 1996 Defensive Player of the Year Gary Payton on Michael
yeah.
Jordan until Seattle was already down 3-0. Seattle went 2-1 once Payton got switched onto MJ full time, but it was too late. 1997 Bulls. Utah flat out choked in the fourth quarter of both
let's
Game
get you
5
some
and Game
stuff.
6, shooting 4 of 17 in
Get
Game
you some
5, a
iron
game
armor.
they lost by just 2 points, and 5 for 15 in Game 6, a game they lost by just 4. Also, the NBA was still using the short
In this
three-point
chest,
line
there's some
with
iron.
most, so who knows
Grab
if
it for the
MJ
armor.
still makes
We're
those
saving the
threes
diamonds
late
for
in
when
his
we
infamous
go
blue
for the
game
Ender
against
Dragon.
a real three-point line. 1998 Bulls.
Yeah, I
Utah
gotta
choked
organize all
again
this
in the
stuff.
fourth quarter of
That'll be
Game
for
2,
another
shooting 4
time.
for 15 in a game they lost by just 5 points. But the biggest asterisk is
So,
how in Game
save
6,
the
an obvious
diamonds
three-pointer
for
by
right now
Utah's
because
Howard
I'm
Isley was
going to
incorrectly
get
waved off, and a later shot by Chicago's Ron
stuff
Harper,
for the
which was
Ender Dragon
obviously
soon.
not out of his hands
So,
until after the shot clock
so
had
I've been
expired,
preparing for
was
that.
incorrectly counted. This was a massive 5-point swing in a game Utah lost by just 1 point. Also, MJ pushed off. 1999 Spurs. Lockout season. Only 50 games? Seriously? That shit doesn't count. They even got to play a shitty Knicks team in the finals. Give me a break. 2000 Lakers. Would have lost in the Western Conference Finals if the Blazers didn't completely shit their pants and shoot 5 for 23 in the fourth quarter to blow a 15-point lead in the fourth
Does
quarter
this
of
always
Game
come
7.
back on the
2001
frickin'
Lakers.
Portland
The 2001
Trailblazers?
Lakers lost both games to Ray Allen and the top-scoring Milwaukee Bucks in the regular season. This is
Like, come
important
on.
because Allen has all but said the
We're not
Bucks
that bad
Sixers
of a
Eastern Conference Finals,
team.
which Milwaukee lost in 7 games, was rigged so the NBA could get regular season MVP Allen Iverson in the finals against the Lakers, a series which the Lakers would easily win in 5 games. 2002 Lakers. Facing elimination down 3-2 in Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals, LA took an absurd 27 free throws in the fourth quarter of a historically controversial series. Also, LA avoided going down 3-1 by getting lucky on a scrum play under the basket that somehow ended up with the ball being tapped out right to Robert Horry, who converted on a game winner for LA as time expired in Game 4. 2003 Spurs. Dirk Nowitzki didn't play in the final 3 games of the 2003 Western Conference Finals with a knee injury, giving San Antonio an easy pass to the finals where they defeated a weak New Jersey Nets team. 2004 Pistons. After averaging 18 points per game in the first round, LA's Karl Malone's knee completely imploded by the finals and was a non-factor. Malone is a piece of shit, but Chauncey Finals MVP isn't much better in the morals department. 2005 Spurs. The league expanded from 29 to 30 teams, diluting San Antonio's title. Also, Rasheed Wallace's massive brain fart late in Game 5 to leave Robert Horry uncovered for a go-ahead three-pointer all but cost Detroit the title, putting them down 3-2 and having to go on the road to San Antonio for the final 2 games, where they ended up losing in 7. 2006 Heat. Miami took 52 more free throws in this series than Dallas, an astounding number. Mark Cuban was so enraged, he reported
Aw, Mark
FBI
Cuban.
agent on the case to investigate.
Shut up,
Moving on.
pussy.
2007 Spurs. Phoenix's Amari Stoudemire and Boris
Mark Cuban
Diaw,
was
both
good.
in their
Amari
primes,
Stoudemire
were
was good
suspended
too.
for a pivotal Game 5
Mark-
of the
Mark
Western
Cuban's
Conference
the owner.
Semifinals for stepping onto the floor at the wrong time after San Antonio's Robert Horry hip
I
checked
know.
Steve Nash into
He
the
also
sideline.
played.
Instead of getting to face a veteran and experienced Pistons team in the finals, the Spurs got to face a Cavs team that consisted of LeBron and a bunch of Make-A-Wish kids. 2008
Oh my
Celtics.
God.
Celtics legend and former Minnesota GM Kevin McHale called up his former Celtics teammate and former Celtics GM Danny Ainge and traded him Kevin Garnett in his prime. And we all know Boston doesn't win in
Oh yeah,
2008
and this
without
over
KG.
here.
2009 Lakers. LA dodged LeBron, who averaged 39, 8-8 in the Eastern Conference Finals and somehow wasn't enough. Of the 229 individual opponents that Kobe Bryant faced at least 20 times in his career, his lowest win percentage came against LeBron.
Oh,
LA
no.
got to face Dwight Howard in Orlando instead. Courtney Lee blew a point-blank layup at the end of Game 2, and Derek Fisher bailed out LA and Kobe in the clutch late in Game 4. LA won the series in 5, but it was a much, much closer series than people remember. 2010 Lakers. In Game 7 of the Finals, the Lakers took 21 free throws in the fourth quarter, while the Celtics took 17 all game. Coincidence? I think not. 2011 Mavericks. It's obvious that a Mavericks fan with major mob connections got the mob to force LeBron James to throw the 2011 finals. There is no other explanation for his unexpectedly awful performance that allowed Dallas to win
No,
the
it
series in
was
6
awful.
games. 2012 Heat. A
What?
lockout season full of
Fucking
broken
LeBron
body
in the
finals. There is no
2011
other
finals.
explanation for his unexpectedly awful performance that allowed Dallas to win the series in 6 games. 2012 Heat. A lockout season full of broken bodies. Derrick Rose tore his ACL, torpedoing the number 1 seeded Bulls season. The number 2 seeded Heat cruised by default to the finals and took down a young OKC team that never fully arrived. 2013 Heat. The reigning 2012 Western Conference champs OKC traded away future MVP James Harden and lost Russell Westbrook to injury in the first round of the playoffs, paving the way for the Heat to repeat. Also, Ray Allen's miracle shot saved Miami from losing in 6 games in the finals versus San Antonio. 2014 Spurs. In Game 1 of the NBA Finals in San Antonio, the Spurs' home arena's air conditioning, quote-unquote, malfunctioned due to electrical failure, and LeBron had to be carried off the floor due to leg cramps. San Antonio
I remember.
by 15 points, thereby invalidating the remainder of the series.
Nah, you don't.
2015 Warriors. Kyrie Irving
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't remember LeBron having cramps.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
functioned due to electrical failure, and LeBron had
Let
to
me
be
get your
carried off the
panties
floor
on
due to
lock.
leg cramps. San Antonio won Game 1 by 15 points, thereby invalidating the remainder of the series. Yes, I'm butthurt. 2015
Jesus
Warriors.
Christ. Why
Kyrie
can't I
Irving's
find
kneecap
the fit?
exploded late in Game 1 of the finals, causing an already injured Cleveland team to play scrubs like James Jones, Iman Shumpert, and Matthew Dellavedova major minutes the remainder of the series. Somehow, the series still went 6 games, largely thanks to LeBron's brilliance. The 2016 Cavaliers. Draymond Green got suspended in a potential
Thank you.
clinching Game 5, and Steph Curry might have been hobbled, and Harrison Barnes
Thank
also
you.
missed several very open shots. Oh, and you can't forget how Andrew Bogut got hurt early in Game 5
Thank
as
you.
well. 2017 Warriors. Kevin
Just basically explained everything, the reason why we blew a 3-1. Curry wasn't 100%. Draymond was suspended. Bogut was hurt. Thank you. Just proved my point.
Durant joined a 73-9 team because of a cap spike, creating a team that was so overpowered they came within 1 game of sweeping the entire postseason without even trying very hard. 2018 Warriors. Chris
I
Paul
was so butthurt when we lost that damn game in the finals. I was like, damn, we could have had a 16-0 playoffs.
hamstring popped while Houston was up 3-2 in the Western Conference Finals. Houston then missed 27 straight three-pointers at home in Game 7. In the finals, LeBron
Okay. They just sucked. They choked.
broke his hand in
Huh.
frustration after the refs
Did you-
finals. Houston then missed 27 straight three-pointers at home in Game 7.
Oh,
in
Houston.
the finals, LeBron broke his hand in frustration after the refs, George Hill and J.R. Smith, cost him a brilliant 51-point performance in Game 1. But mostly, it's the same as the year before. Golden State doesn't win without re-signing KD again. They were a completely artificial dynasty that deserves absolutely zero respect. 2019 Raptors.
Cry.
Kawhi Leonard rested all season and got an extremely lucky bounce at the end of Game 7 against Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference semifinals that ended up nudging the ball through the basket. But let's be real. The real asterisk here is that Toronto only beat Golden State in the finals because Kevin Durant played just 11 minutes all series
True.
long, and Klay Thompson missed 1.5 games.
We would have beat, guys, quote me on this. We would have beat Toronto if KD was healthy and Klay didn't tear his ACL. Simple. We would have beat Toronto.
Maybe.
Healthy Golden State steamrolls them.
It's
2020
tough how,
Lakers,
you know,
a bubble ring.
it's tough to say how something could have
travel,
gone.
and Miami had injuries to key players like Goran Dragic
I'm not
and
saying
Bam Adebayo that
you
gave
would have
LA an easy
lost.
finals win.
I'm saying
and finally, the 2020 Lakers,
it's tough to
a bubble
say.
ring.
If you would have won or lost. I mean,
Kevin
either
Durant
way, it was still a good season.
played just 11 minutes all series long, and Klay Thompson missed 1.5 games. A healthy Golden State steamrolls them. 2020 Lakers, a bubble ring. No crowds, no travel, and Miami had injuries to key players like Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo that gave LA an easy finals win. And finally,
Yeah, I remember. I'll tell you what, I obviously, because I'm also a Heat fan too, I felt so bad for Jimmy Butler. I felt so bad for him. He was literally, I remember game 6, or it might have been game 5, trying to catch his breath.
I'm not a Jimmy Butler fan, but I'm not a big person on Jimmy Butler. I just don't like him as a player. But I don't hate him like some players.
The 2021 Bucks. Injuries to Harden and Kyrie in the Eastern Conference semifinals are the only reason Milwaukee made the finals. And in the finals, they got
What are you, Frankie?
to play a good
What?
but not great Phoenix team.
I was asking him if he's Frankie.
That gave LA an
'Cause
easy
listen.
finals win. And finally, the 2021 Bucks. Injuries to Harden and Kyrie in the Eastern Conference semifinals are the only reason Milwaukee made the finals. And in the finals, they got to play a good but not great Phoenix team who were only there largely thanks
So I said, what are you, Frankie? Because that's something Frankie would say.
injuries to LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Kawhi Leonard. Just a
No, the
massively
Nets were just
injury-tainted
overrated.
season all around. Even though I just spent the last 10 minutes or so invalidating every single NBA title that's ever existed, just remember, every single NBA title ever is more valuable than any of Tom Brady's Super Bowl rings. Do you think any of us will...
That's false. Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time, and it's not even close. I mean, maybe you consider.
In stores now.
He got bailed out a lot of years.
Some of them, yes, but he still
Like
won the game
28 to 3. 28 to 3. We should have never blown that. We should have at least scored at least a touchdown.
Well, it was your own damn fault.
The fucking tuck rule.
Taco rules bullshit.
I'm not saying Brady isn't the best quarterback of all time. I'm saying some years he did get bailed out.
Oh, everybody gets bailed out.
Yeah. In this video, I'm going to place an asterisk on every Super Bowl winner in the 21st century. If your team hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2000, then you should love this video. But if your team has won a Super Bowl, then prepare to be butthurt. 2000. The 2000 Ravens won the Super Bowl on the back of their famously dominant defense. The leader of that defense was Ray Lewis, who ended up winning Super Bowl MVP and Defensive Player of the Year and made many key plays throughout the season. The asterisk here is simply that Lewis should have been instead of on the football field. There's no way the 2000 Ravens win without Lewis. 2001. Yes, now we get into the good shit. Where to start on the 2001 Patriots? First is the obvious Spygate scandal that tainted all 3 of their rings in the early 2000s, but you also have the Tuck rule, which was a terrible call that saved their season from ending in the divisional round like it should have. Simply put, if Tom Brady's fumble had been correctly ruled, there is no 2001 Super Bowl champion Patriots. We also can't forget about the uncalled intentional grounding penalty on Brady on his game-winning drive in Super Bowl 36. Damn, maybe I should make an entire video about Brady's cheating and luck. 2002. The 2002 Buccaneers had an all-time dominant defense on their own, but the asterisk here is how they got to face an Oakland Raiders team in the Super Bowl whose all-pro center Barrett Robbins went AWOL the night before the game, and whose coach Bill Callahan didn't even bother to change the offensive signals to try and fool former Raiders head coach and new Buccaneers head coach John Gruden. Tampa cruised to a blowout Super Bowl win thanks in large part to picking off Oakland quarterback Rich Gannon 5 times with 3 pick-sixes. It didn't end up mattering in the end, but Tampa quarterback Brad Johnson also paid some guys $7,500 to scuff and break in the 100 footballs that were used in the Super Bowl. This isn't legal, by the way. 2003, Spygate. I'm not naive enough to think that Patriots were the only ones cheating during this time, but I'm also not going to ignore the fact that Roger Goodell ordered his minions to destroy all the Spygate
Minions.
teams in 2007. For anybody who says New England didn't get any advantage from filming opponent signals, just remember this. No team would continue to do something illegal unless it gave them advantages. As per tangible on-the-field matters, the 03 Patriots are responsible for the league reinforcing illegal contact rules defensively after their performance in the 2003 AFC Championship game. They illegally mugged and held Indianapolis's receivers all game long, which was a huge reason they advanced to the Super Bowl. Also, let's not ignore Tom Brady getting away with a shitload of drops. Also, John Casey's kick out of bounds. 2004, Spygate again. 2005, Seahawks fans will enjoy this one. The 2005 Steelers had a magical run to the Super Bowl thanks to 3 road playoff wins. But their 21-10 Super Bowl win over Seattle was tainted by several very questionable calls. Number 1, at the end of the first quarter, Seattle was at the Pittsburgh 17-yard line. Matt Hasselbeck found Darrell Jackson in the end zone for a touchdown, but Jackson was called for a controversial offensive pass interference.
That's not offensive pass interference.
However, because of the penalty, they ended up only kicking a field goal. Number 2, on 3rd and goal at Seattle's 3-yard line at the end of the second quarter, down 3-0, historically dominant women respecter Ben Roethlisberger.
You gotta stop calling him that. You got. That game was rigged.
What?
Seahawks and Steelers.
Being reviewed, the play stood as called, but as a neutral observer with
I don't know.
this fight, no offense to Michael Vick, it looks like the ball never crossed the goal line. And finally, number 3, at the start of the fourth quarter, Seattle trailing 14-10.
I'm gonna head out. I'm super
Set up
tired.
1st and goal at Pittsburgh's 1-yard line, but Seattle was called for a hold on the play. Many argue there was no hold and that the Pittsburgh player being held, Clark Haggans, was also offside.
Yes,
Seattle threw an interception 3 plays later. On top of this, on the interception return, Seattle was whistled for a low block, which gave Pittsburgh great field position that they would eventually score off of. So Seattle went from being 1 yard away from taking the lead to Pittsburgh being only 40 yards away from scoring. Is this just sour grapes on the part of Seattle fans? Maybe, but there's no denying the refs had an impact on the final result. Even the head ref from the game, Bill Levy, admits it. 2006. While there wasn't anything on the field specifically that happened to negate the Colts' Super Bowl win, there have long been accusations that the team pumped in artificial crowd noise to make it tougher on visiting teams. This would certainly have come in handy, no offense to Shaquem Griffin, for the 2006 AFC Championship.
No.
What?
This would seriously come in handy. No offense to Shaquem Griffin.
Oh my god.
Versus New England, which was played in Indianapolis. The Colts fell behind 21-3 early before rallying
I'm
back to
getting
win
off. I'm
38-34.
tired.
It was the largest blown playoff lead by
Alright.
the Brady Belichick era. While I thank Indy for taking down Tom Brady, it still needs to be said that they were helped on defense by the fake crowd noise. Indy also lucked out in getting to face the sex cannon Rex Grossman in a monsoon in Super Bowl 41 instead of Drew Brees. 2007. There's no doubting the 07 Giants were extremely fortunate in the playoffs. They made 3 fourth-quarter stops against an elite Dallas offense to win 21-17 in the divisional round. They made 3 more defensive stops, with the score tied at 20 in the fourth quarter in overtime versus Green Bay in the NFC Championship to win that game 23-20. Then, of course, they needed the infamous Tyreek catch in Super Bowl 42 to squeak by New England 17-14. The Tyreek catch was an unquestionably lucky play, but does that mean that the title has an asterisk? Even if the pass was incomplete, New York still would have had the ball on 4th down. If you really want to give the 07 Giants an asterisk, you need to go back 2 years prior to the 2004 draft, where Eli Manning refused to play for the Chargers, who selected him 1st overall. Instead, he forced his way to New York. Do the 07 Giants win the Super Bowl without Eli Manning at quarterback? If you think they don't win it, then slap a big bad asterisk on
gonna be alright.